The Nigeria Governors Forum says it is working to resolve issues surrounding the implementation of the Executive Order 10. President Muhammadu Buhari recently signed an executive order granting autonomy to the judicial and legislative arms of government at the state level. The president's decision was met with commendation, especially from the judiciary, but state governors expressed concerns over its constitutionality and financial implications. Joining me in the studio to talk about this is human rights lawyer Justice Chineme Uhuebu. Justice, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
It's my pleasure.
Great. All right. Now, the Executive Order 10. If I have to quote the governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, who said that it was really unnecessary from his own perspective, from what he saw and all of that. He said the governors were cooperating to ensure that they see to that. But the Constitution is clear from what we understand, at least you will enlighten us here, as to where the powers of each arm of government starts and where it ends, and the issues of checks and balances. But talk to us about this issue of autonomy that warrants the president to issue an executive order before a constitutional specification is looked into.
Well, you see, that is part of the administrative problem we have in Nigeria, and that is part of the political, political problems we have in the country. First of all, like you rightly said, it is a constitutional provision, ab initio, that granted the judiciary autonomy from the Constitution, even the legislative arm and other. But fortunately or unfortunately, because of politics, the president also, maybe he has been coerced or out of pressure, has to also make an additional executive order. Now, but the question you should be asking yourself is this: must the governors always be at the bedrock of the whole thing? You see, there was something I was telling Nigerians the other day, that one of the problems we're having in this administration today is because the executive arm of government has succeeded in swallowing the two other arms of government, that is the judiciary and legislature, seeing them as part of the executive and not as a separate arm of government. By the rules of engagement, we all study government, we all know what is obtainable, both the Constitution and all the rest. The doctrine and the rule of separation of power, where is it? Propounded by Montesquieu and all the rest. But today is even a shameful thing that the legislators are not even rising to their responsibilities. Let me tell you the truth. The executive are even supposed to be somehow under the mercy of the legislature. The judiciary is only there to interpret. Because remember, even when a president or when the governors comes up with their budget for the year, if the National Assembly did not pass it, or the various state house of assemblies did not pass it, it will not fly. So by implication, the legislators are even the ones saddled the responsibility of doing this job, serving as a check to the executive. But today, because of politics, what do you expect? Because the executives are the ones that will determine who becomes a senator, who becomes who goes to House of Representatives. You saw what happened the last time in the National Assembly about the election of Speaker of the House of Reps, the Senate President, and all the rest. It was all politics. Why must it be like that? People that should handle their affairs as an independent body, you are waiting for the president to have his anointed candidate to be the Senate President. What do you expect? So it becomes an issue of he who plays the piper dictates the tune. And again, unfortunately, people that we are sending to the National Assembly seem not to know their job or why they are there. How can today, in almost all the states in Nigeria, the House of Assembly members has become errand boys to the governor? The senators and House of Reps members in Abuja have become errand boys to the president. If they say it's not true, let them challenge me by doing the needful. There have been a lot of constitutional breach by this president that should have called for an impeachment, at least start an impeachment process, but they will not do it. They will tell you, don't worry, we're having a synergy, we are discussing with the president. For what? If the institutions are working, you don't have any business with the president. You don't. You are an independent body. The executive is an independent. In fact, let me tell you, by right, the executive cannot even spend 1 naira without being appropriated by the National Assembly. And in the wisdom of the Constitution also, you see, we talked about the Constitution being bad, yes. But in total, it's not too bad. Because the problem is that the people who are supposed to protect the Constitution are the ones flouting the Constitution. And remember that the Constitution also provides for an oversight function on the side of legislature to even monitor how those monies appropriated will be spent.
That is why in the wisdom, committees are set up into looking into all the areas that monies are allocated to spend. But the point there is, the judiciary, on the other hand, who also has the powers to say this is null and void and this is carried as the case may be. How helpless is the judiciary? The one that is said to be the hope, the last hope of the common man.
Yes, it is. But you see, that's why I'm trying to explain. Because of politics today, ordinarily, the role of the judiciary is to interpret the laws. When there is always a conflict, because naturally, in every working democracy all over the world, there must always be a conflict between the executive and the legislature. And that is where you now see the judiciary doing their job. By interpreting the law, simplicity the way it should be. That is why in law, in interpretation of statutes and the laws, we have different interpretation. We'll have like the plain interpretation, the justin generis rules, and all the rest. So the legislature will give it its interpretation it deserves by looking at the intention of the draftsman as at the time of making the law. But today it is no longer like that. Why? Because the executives are even under the mercy, the judiciary is even under the mercy of the executive for funding. And that is why I keep on saying, people like all that, judiciary is not totally independent. Secondly, the president has hand in appointing whoever becomes the Chief Justice of the Federation, the Attorney General. These things are not supposed to be executive appointments. Various state governors are saddled with the responsibility of appointing the Chief Justice of the various states, Justice of High Courts, and all the rest. So, a governor can sit in his office and call a judge, I am interested in this matter. And that is why you see most times, any matter that goes to court that concerns government, forget about it. You can never make any headway. So you see that the judiciary, but remember, it was not like this before. If you look at first time we practice democracy, second time
in the First Republic,
the first and second Republic wasn't like
this.
But
in the First Republic, we had the parliamentary system of government.
Yes,
which made it different from what we are practicing now.
But at least the judiciary was working. The judiciary was working.
Maybe because there was a fusion between the legislature and the executive.
But they were still independent. They were doing their job. That issue of watchdog was still there.
So where did we get it wrong?
Fine. That is because of politics. Selfishness by our politicians. Because, for example, once somebody is coming in as a governor, he already has in mind whom he wants to make his Attorney General. He already has in mind who he wants to become the Chief Judge of the state. You understand it? So whether you like it or not. In fact, in my state, Imo State, there was a time the chief judge, the former chief judge of Imo State, when you go for executive meeting, he will be serving cola. That will tell you how bad it is. Everybody now serves the governor as if the governor is a god. When the governor should be under you as the legislators and the judiciary. So, how many incorruptible judges do we have in this country again? How many people that will look at the law and give judgment based on the law and all the rest? So now you look at it because of politics. The judiciary depends on them for funding. I had one governor saying that he has complied with the independence of judiciary. He's giving judges car. Is that not madness? Ordinarily, the Constitution provides that the judiciary and even the legislature must have their funding direct. Just like the way they killed the local government system in Nigeria. And one of the problems we're having in Nigeria today is because the local government system have been killed. That is the only authority that is close to the masses. But this Buhari, since 1999, there was a conspiracy of the governors in the name of Governors Forum. They hijacked all these things. And nobody is talking. Everybody is interested in becoming the chief judge, becoming a judge. For you to even become a judge, you must lobby.
All right. The principles of separation of power, as propounded by French philosopher Baron de Montesquieu, talk to us about that. What are the ideals of separation of powers as it is enshrined in the Constitution? Enlighten us from that perspective.
You see, simplicity, the doctrine of separation of power was made or is made to avoid tyranny. What is tyranny? Abuse of power. And that is what we are seeing today in Nigeria, in this administration. Every Nigerian today knows that the executive in this country today has abused their power in total. And that's why I said, you see, I told Nigerians some time ago that whether you will like it or not, there is little or nothing this administration will achieve. And people said, why? I said, because they already have this mindset that the legislature and judiciary is under them and is working for them. So what do you expect? But the idea of separation of power as propounded by Montesquieu was to avoid abuse of power like what is happening in Nigeria today. Because remember he added by saying that because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that is what is happening today in Nigeria. All the executive arm of government, all the people there are corrupt. In fact, their power, if there's any other thing than absolute corruption, that is what they are practicing today. And because of that, impunity now has to set up. And that's what we are suffering. Now imagine a situation where the separation of power is working as it's supposed to work. The executive will mind their business. The legislatures will mind their business. The judiciary will mind their business. But today, the executive is doing the work of the executive, doing that of the legislature, and doing that of the judiciary. And the truth is that there are rules and principles propounded already against some of these things. A situation where a president will be summoned, he will refuse to answer the National Assembly. Even an ordinary minister will be summoned by the National Assembly, he will refuse to go. So what do you expect? Is that not abuse?
And nothing will happen.
And nothing will happen. That is impunity to the highest order. And now, constitutionally, the legislators, they have the powers to summon any public officer, whether elected or appointed. But today, nothing, and the National Assembly will keep quiet. They will keep mute. Why? Because they themselves are even more selfish than the executive.
You're saying that the legislators are selfish?
Yes.
In what way can
Fine. If they are not selfish, they must do the right thing. Because one, remember, they are the legislators. They are even the people saddled by law to make laws. So they know the law more than the executive. And they know when an executive personnel has flouted the law. And what are they supposed to do? They are supposed to invoke the provisions of the law by at least starting an impeachment process. Then let the person, if the person now have a remorse, you cannot drop it. But
is
nothing like that.
Is it only an impeachment process that can be served as a way of trying to whip the executive into line?
Yeah, there are so many other things. There are so many other things. But remember that the anticipation of death is worse than death itself. By the time you make them know that, well, you have committed an impeachable offense and we are going to impeach you out of the way, they will not want to go. Because we are in a country where resignation is a no-go area. Nobody will talk about that. There are so many other things they can do. The legislatures also can even, have a resolution passed by 2/3 of majority.
The president
compel the president or executive to do an act. Do you understand the thing? Even since the allocation, or refuse to approve the budget.
Or use a veto.
Now, in this country, in this administration, there have been few times where the National Assembly has tried to do an act, responsibly guaranteed them by the Constitution, and the president refused to sign. Instead of them to invoke their power by 2/3 majority, they are still going to beg the presidency. Is it supposed to be that way? So the money the president is spending, the money they are spending and all the rest, where is it coming from? Who is appropriating it? Who makes it to become law before you spend it? It's the same National Assembly. But because of selfishness, that's where I came in. Because of selfishness, nobody wants to leave his position. They want to be getting their money, their allocation. They want to be getting their everything. And of course, today they have wardrobe allowance. They have slippers allowance, shoe allowance, Tvc allowance, and all the rest. Look at the fleet of cars they are using, each of them. Look around into millions. But you forgot that same money, without you, it cannot be possible. The executive cannot even do anything.
All right. In less than 1 minute, what's the way forward on this? What do you think?
Well, the way forward,
Judiciary Union have gone on strike and...
well, Judiciary just called off the strike.
Yeah, they have.
As far as I'm concerned, let me tell you the truth. Judiciary do not even have any reason to have gone on strike with the legislative workers. These are the two arms that are responsible to even deal with the executive. So why are you going on strike? If things are done normal, if not for political interest and selfish interest, what does it take? It takes only the chief judge to do the needful with the legislators, and you serve the governor or the president an impeachment notice, and that goes it. So why are you going on strike? Is the chief judge not aware that this thing is not supposed to happen?
Anyway, but we know that when it comes to impeachment, because of political leanings and affiliations, sometimes it's a very hard
Why is it hard? See, let me tell you, laws are not meant for anybody.
Yeah,
laws
but we're talking of, the moment it gets into the assembly or national assembly, it becomes a political institution. So when you're talking about, before a resolution of that nature is passed, there has to be a 2/3 majority. Yes. And if the moment you are not able to generate a 2/3 majority because of political leanings and affiliations,
it's easy. You know why? You see the problem we have, because we play party politics here. We're not being patriotic. It's not about party. As I speak to you today, if the presidency does anything wrong, no member of the ruling party, APC, will see anything wrong in it in the National Assembly. Is it supposed to be so?
Well, but those who are speaking...
You are elected as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as a House of Reps member of the Federal Republic, and not a senator of APC or PDP. So that is the problem.
But under the platform of a political party.
Yes, political party is just a ladder for you to climb.
All right. Anyway, we have to leave it here now. Justice Uwebu, thank you so much for your insight into all of these. Thank you very much.
Well, it's my pleasure once more.
And good to have you back after all. All right.